Welcome back, Freddy in the Shed 1. Now, if by chance you're searching for this video in the future, maybe 6 months, a year's time, and you're looking for a definitive step-by-step guide to fix your Pebble watch, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this video probably is not for you. I just did this really for the amusement factor of my regular subscribers. I do manage to fix 2 watches in this video, so it may be useful for you, but I just want you to know that I will not be answering dozens and dozens of comments and questions in the future, and I really would not appreciate sort of like, hey Fred, you mucked up my watch. This is quite a technical thing to do. If you've got any doubts about taking your watch apart, then don't do it. So, got that bit out of the way, but before I get into taking the watch apart, I'd like to talk to you about Pebble Watch itself, because it's a fascinating company. It all kicked off as a Kickstarter project back in April 2012, and it finished on Kickstarter in May 2012, and at the time it raised the most money, $10.2 million, than any other project. They started shipping completed watches in July 2013, and they completely sold out within just 5 days, and by the end of 2014 they had sold their millionth watch. In 2015, Pebble went back to Kickstarter to launch the Pebble Steel and Pebble Time watch. This time they raised $20.3 million from 75,000 backers, and once again broke all records for the site. Pebble then moved on and tried to create a small partnership with the sports watch manufacturer Fitbit, and even plans to introduce a new Pebble watch here with a heartbeat monitor. But unfortunately, by December the 7th, 2016, it was all over and Pebble filed for bankruptcy. And I think it's just one of those tragic cases of being the first, because Pebble were the first to introduce a smartwatch with e-ink technology and a watch that had an absolutely incredible 7-day battery life. But it didn't matter how impressive the watch was. Of course, Chinese manufacturers would take one apart, look at it and see if they could produce something that looked the same, a lot cheaper. And of course, price does matter on a consumer market. And then I think the final blow was when the big boys got onto the smartwatch scene. And of course, when Apple produced the smartwatch, it absolutely exploded onto the market and people started queuing up to buy it. Fitbit as well produced their own range of smartwatch sportswear, and again that outsold Pebble by many times. And Pebble tried to fight back with the Pebble Watch 2, which had a colour screen this time but still used the very low voltage e-ink technology, which gave you that quite unique 7-day battery life. But as clever as that colour display was, it was the more simple black and white display of the original Pebble Watch Steel that caught my eye back in 2014, and I purchased one for the lofty sum of £180 UK. Now, I will confess that after a few weeks of play, I got down to using the very basics of the watch. I kind of got used to having a phone in my pocket and blocking or receiving calls using the watch and reading text messages, especially useful when I was driving. And that's the thing about a smartphone. Once you get used to not looking at your phone all the time and just reading it off your wrist, it's very hard to try and go back to the old way of working. But for many people, that is going to become a reality, because support for the Pebble watch is ending in June 2018. The basic functions of the watch will still work, like reading text messages and answering and receiving calls, but a lot of the functionality, certainly the sports features, are going to be dropped when that support ends. Now, the Pebble Steel 2 watch with the colour screen is no longer available, but I was really surprised to see that the original black and white Pebble Steel watch is still available on Amazon at a much reduced price, of course, and if you don't mind having a matte black case, it's even cheaper still, but you do have to be a Prime member. And even though the support is going to be dropped, I did the only sensible thing and I went out and ordered a brand new watch. Now, my original 4-year-old smartwatch, functions wise it still works perfectly well, but I did notice that some water had started to creep under the Gorilla Glass. It seems like it's delaminating from the watch module itself, and I knew it was only a matter of time until the water got right into the watch, and then I was going to be completely screwed. So I did think it was the right time to buy a new one. Now, this should be the end of the story, but I thought it was a shame just to throw my old watch away because it was fully working, even though the face had just become kind of a bit discoloured. So I went looking on eBay and found that people were selling broken, untested watches, and these three came up here, and I was lucky. I was the only one that put a bid on. So I thought if I could take my module for my watch and put it into a new case, then I would have two fully functioning Pebble watches. And a few days later the watches turned up, and I was really pleased that they all seem very low hour watches. The faces are absolutely fine, even the straps are nice. Now this one on the left here seems to be suffering from screen tear, where the screen doesn't display properly. This one's quite bad. And this one in the middle here just doesn't seem to be working at all. It's completely dead. The backlight works but nothing else. And in this one, well, the screen seems to flash rather odd, but I was able to get an error code from the watch, and it appears that one of the buttons has become unfunctioning or perhaps stuck. So I thought before I strip one down to replace the innards from my old watch, I thought it'd be quite interesting just to sort of see if I could get any of these watches working, because cosmetically they're in very, very good condition. But before I get into taking these watches apart, if you're watching this video yourself and you have a broken Pebble watch, I'm not making this video as a complete guide. You're just going to sort of follow me as I sort of go through it. Also, you know, don't take these watches apart unless you're absolutely sure you can handle very small electronic components. But before I even get into that, let's look at the new watch that I bought from Amazon. I'm really quite surprised that you can still buy these new. And here it is, lovely sparkling new watch, absolutely everything perfect. And I'm hoping to get a few years out of this one and then use the other watches just as a sort of backup. Now, I'm suddenly in a bit of a dilemma because I have three watches here that have perfect cases and crystal glasses, and now one of them has to be sacrificed so I can put in my old module, but not quite sure which one to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each watch and see if I can resurrect it, and when I come across one that is irreparable, that's the watch that I will sacrifice. And maybe all three are irreparable, but that's the procedure that I'm going to use. Now the first watch that I'm going to have a go at is the one that had the screen tear. This is a very common problem, and it seems that these Pebble watches fail at quite low hours. The screen display gradually sort of breaks up, and in the end it's you can't see it at all. And there was a little fix on the internet that I read that if you took the back off and you put in a very small kind of pad to put pressure on the bottom part of the circuit board, then this seemed to fix it. So that sounds like a very easy repair, and that's what I'm going to do first. Now when you come to take the back off these Pebble watches, you need a T3 Torx screwdriver. On the internet sometimes people say it's a T5, but it actually is a T3. And also you have to be very, very careful when you prise the back off. Once you get the screws out, there's nothing really holding it on, but there is the vibrator motor, which looks like a small watch battery, and that is secured to the back of the watch itself. And if you just yank this off, what you will end up doing is ripping that off the circuit board, and you will no longer have a vibrator. So according to the guides that I've seen on the internet, it's this bottom left hand corner of the circuit board that you need to apply a little bit of pressure just to reconnect the screen connector. I don't know really. I mean, I've tried here just pushing it with my sort of fingers. It didn't really seem to make much difference. I'm not 100% confident that this is probably going to be a workable repair, but I thought I'd give it a try anyway because this is what everyone said. So I've got a small piece of sort of like foam packing here and made up a little pad, and then you sort of simply wedge that onto the circuit board and then very carefully put the back on the watch. Now it's worth noting those little T3 screws are absolutely tiny, so you've got to be very, very careful that you don't cross thread them, because once you've done that they won't work at all. But anyway, we did that. We put the back on, and yeah, absolutely nothing. The screen display is still very much teared, no improvement at all. So unfortunately that didn't work. So I thought, well, at least I've now got a donor watch that I can use. This could be the sort of watch that I put my old module into this case, or maybe transfer the glass from this watch into my old one. Basically I sort of tried to attack this from the front. There was a very small kind of bezel that I was able to sort of prise off, but when it came to the Gorilla Glass itself, it seems to be bonded on really, really tight with some sort of form of resin, and to remove that, I think the sort of glass would have sort of shattered. So I had to kind of revisit that and think maybe, well, we'll maybe just sort of use one of the cases and then just transfer my old module into that, and then that way we'll have a working watch. Now, another thing that I quickly realised is once I get these modules out of the cases, you can't tell them apart. I don't know which ones are broken and which one is good. So my old one, I made sure that I put a cross on that just to sort of mark it. And it's when I was doing this, when I was transferring my old module into the sort of newer case, that I realised that you had one of these little kind of like silicon strips that connects the screen to the circuit board. They had these in early LCD calculators, and they just work by pressure. They're not sort of soldered or anything like that, and really you're better off with a ribbon cable. Lots of calculators used to fail, and I've resurrected quite a few of these just by using a little bit of contact spray. Now at this stage I'm pretty happy, and for my £18 I now have a second fully working watch, and this will be a great backup to the new one that I've bought. And yeah, this is what I sort of set out to do. But you know, the other two watches, well, I can sort of go all out for it now because I've got nothing really sort of to lose. But that one that had that sort of torn screen that was slightly flashing, it did bug me a little bit. And so I went into the garage and found the sort of contact spray and thought, well, maybe we just put it back together with a little bit of contact spray, and you never know, it might work. It did work in those calculators all those years ago. So that's simply what I did, and then I put the sort of module back in the watch. I did put a little pad on it like they recommended. I didn't do sweet bugger all, but put that back in anyway, and then screwed it back on with those tiny little screws. And yeah, I was pleased to say that when I turned the watch over, sort of put it on, took the power on, yeah, it came on. The screen was absolutely perfect, no pixels dead, no lines, anything like that. So it appeared this was a second watch that I'd resurrected. Right, I was really pleased with that. I was on a bit of a roll. That one thing with these watches, because this one had been dead for so long, it needed a full complete update from the sort of Pebble kind of app. So luckily I had that on my phone. I don't know how long these apps are going to be active for. It was currently still in the App Store when I made this video, but of course the support for Pebble is now dropping off. Now it's owned by Fitbit. So 2 down and 2 to go really. Now the watch that was in the middle when we first started, the one that was completely dead, remained completely dead. I couldn't get any life out of that watch at all, and that's the case that I used to resurrect my old watch. So then I turned my attention to the one that had the error code that said it had a stuck button. When I took this module out of the watch, I noticed that the button was completely destroyed on the inside. I don't know if that's through to wear. I don't think so. It's such a low hour watch, but it was a repair, or supposed repair, on the internet, which tells you to prod a cocktail stick inside the sort of case and just down the sort of side where the button is, and it's completely wrong advice. It just absolutely destroys the foil. However, the buttons on the completely dead watch, well, they felt absolutely fine, and when I took that apart, yeah, they were no problem at all. So I very carefully pulled off the strip PCB that contains the little popper buttons, and this is not a job for the faint-hearted. I mean, certainly you've got to be in a situation where you've probably got nothing to lose, because it's very easy to dislodge some of the surface mount technology that's put onto this board. But anyway, got the board off, and then I fitted it into the broken button watch, and I was really pleased to note that when I booted it up, it worked absolutely fine. So that kind of concludes the repair. Now it does get a little bit confusing because they all look the same, so let's have a little recap and see how we ended up. This was my original new one that I bought, so that doesn't count. So there we go. The 3 dud ones that I bought, really we've only got one left, which we had to sacrifice, and this really was to get my screen out, which was my original watch, which has the water or the condensation damage between the sort of layers there of the screen itself. So we had to sacrifice out of the 3 watches that we bought for £18 something from eBay. We was able to get 2 fully working. Now, as I said before, obviously the problem with these was really the screen tearing, which was down to that screen connector, and I don't know what's going to happen when the contact spray does eventually dissolve, whether that's going to go back to screen tearing again. Can't really sort of say, but it appears that what fails on these watches is either that very tiny screen connector there, or it's the little buttons. Obviously these very, very small little sort of pop buttons there that seem to stick. And obviously this one, someone had sort of had a go with a cocktail stick, I think, and sort of dislodged it. But once they go, I sort of think that's it. It's a shame, isn't it? Just a couple of little design faults there. I'm sure there's other things that go wrong on these watches, but say they all shared the same two faults. It was either a button damage on one of them, and then the others were just sort of screen connectors. So there you go. I'm a happy chappy. I've now got a lot of watches there to keep me busy. As I say, I've got the new one here, and then obviously I've got my good module in that one, so we know that those two are good. They should keep me going for, say, another 8 years, and then I've got a couple of backups if these ones last. Well, there we go. As I say, this is not in any way a tutorial to sort of mend your own watch, and it's very, very fiddly getting this little module out. These little pins, these little clips here that sort of hold it into the watch case. It's not a very good design, and it takes quite a surprising amount of force really to sort of remove the module from the watch case itself. So it's not something you want to do for the faint-hearted. If you're in any doubt, do not take it on, because you're likely to damage all of the little SMDs around here and the switches themselves. That's all circuitry. When you start prodding something down the side, you've got to be ultra careful. So I wouldn't recommend it unless your watch is completely buggered and you've got nothing to lose. But it does appear that a little bit of screen connector on those contacts onto the sort of the watch face there does seem to work. Well, okay, there you go. It's a long video. Sorry about that. I did say it was going to be a long one. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. It's just me messing about with electronics, really. But as for now, I'd say thank you if you stuck with it. That was quite an ordeal. But as always, cheers. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. Plenty of more other Fred videos, radio-wise and other stuff on the channel. And I'll leave a few little suggestions that pop up on the screen there if you want to go away and have a look at some more of my videos. You're always welcome. Your views are most welcome. But as for now, cheers. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. And of course, I'll catch you all on the next one.